here are two things that you can do with DashTrack's QR code system right now. And as a little note, if you are on this version of the dashboard, or if you're on a version of the dashboard that looks like this, the actual things that you're going to have to do are pretty much identical because the features are the same for this particular feature. If you're on this newer version of the dashboard, if you open up the side panel and click on QR codes, that is going to be the same panel as if you go here to settings and then click on QR codes. All the features, options, all of those things are going to be the same. So in this very quick guide, we're going to see how we can create two different types of QR codes. So we're going to see how we can create a QR code if you want it for your own site. And then we're going to see how we can create a QR code that is for external sites. So in this case, we're going to link out to a form, and you're going to see a very cool feature that DashTrack has that not a lot of platforms out there make available, or even QR code platforms for that matter. So let's see exactly how that's going to work. And we're also going to see how we can style each one of these QR codes to match your very own brand, and even include things like your colors and your logo. So let's now dive into it. So once you've gone to settings, QR codes, then you can simply, if you want to do an external QR code, you can just say create QR code and then type in a nickname. And you can see right away it adjusted. And the reason why it adjusted is because it actually set, based off of just your nickname, a base URL. Now, this is kind of the magic on how this can work for a very wide range of situations where a lot of other QR codes do not. And to explain why that is, it helps to understand what QR codes are, because most of the people I talk to think they're kind of just magic, and they're really not. So the easiest way to think about how a QR code work, or really what they are, is a QR code is like a puzzle. So it's a puzzle that your computer, cameras, different things like that are able to put the pieces together very quickly. And you, in turn, are able to generate a very wide range of different things that QR codes can be used for. So you are probably the most used to using them for, popping your phone out and scanning one, and then it taking you off to, some website. And that's a very common use case for it. But really, all a QR code is it is a series of ones and zeros, and then a few other little key features that cameras and really anything that can analyze a code and decrypt it is going to be able to use to know exactly what to do with it. So it doesn't have to be a URL. So you could generate a QR code that's just represents a crazy long set of strings, or a secret sentence, or anything like that. Hopefully it's not too secret, though, because they're pretty easy to, every camera and phone in the world could decrypt it. But anyway, be that as it may, you have the ability to essentially represent any type of string. Just because URLs are the kind of the most practical one doesn't mean that's what it's limited to. I've worked on applications where I've built out all kinds of different things with QR codes. So you can use a QR code instead of a barcode scanner for one thing. So if you've ever seen in like grocery stores or department stores, anything like that, you see a barcode on the ticket or on the product. That's really just a different type of QR code. Each one of these little dots, however they're arranged, and which is a good intro to see how you can use the DashTrack engine to actually customize the layout of this and change it up however you want. So let's say that this is going to be something for print. We can change it to be 3000 pixels or 5000 pixels just by updating what that size is, and it automatically updates the height and width. And then you can even do things like include margin. And so this just gives a little bit of space around it. So if you're going to print, that's usually something nice to have. So you've probably seen QR codes. These are kind of the older school ones where you have kind of squares here, squares everywhere, and yeah, a number of different like variations of that. And so this is definitely the most common way that QR codes used to be configured because just to get an idea of how they work, each one of these, whether it is dark or light, uh, it doesn't really matter. And as you're going to see, we're going to change up the colors here. But everything in the middle, outside of these squares here, these are just a series of ones and zeros. So just like any kind of computer code, it's just a one is if it's filled in, a zero is if it's empty. So this would just be 1 0 1 0 1 1, so on and so forth. And those sets of ones and zeros, when put in a specific order, are what tells the computer camera exactly what this code translates to, whether it's a URL or a barcode or whatever it is. And so that's really all it is. But now we can have a lot more flexibility and we can change up the design in a number of different ways. If you're curious on the three dots here and what those represent, those are actually just a very handy way for the QR code to tell the phone that it is a QR code. So if you were to take these items away, everything left in the middle would still represent your URL or whatever it is you're trying to show. But what these do is the moment that a camera that has been, or any type of scanning device has been trained in order to uh, be able to translate and work with QR codes, they have been pre-programmed with the knowledge that if it sees three big squares, dots, you'll see we have a few different variations we can use that are all that all work great. This instantly tells the phone, hey, this is a QR code, switch into that QR code scanning mode. And so it's just a efficient way of being able to do that. And there are also some little nuances that you may or may not notice, just little things like in some of the corners that are always very similar, or you have the uh have kind of a similar shape or sets of ones and zeros. Well, a lot of times what those are doing is those are enhancements that have been made through the years for allowing a phone to scan a QR code even at an angle, and based on some of the structure of these, it can actually pick that up and translate it. So if you've ever noticed that QR code scanning has gotten a lot faster in the past decade or so, it is really just due to all of those kinds of little things like these big squares telling the phones exactly what to do, and then some of these kind of standardized structures. You don't have to worry about any of that, but I thought you might want to be a little bit more familiar with it, because this way you can now, if you went through that, you can now be one of the few people who don't think that QR codes are some kind of magic code. They're really just computer code. So let's get this all done for this external URL. So first, if you want to change your colors, you can change the background color. So right away, if you have your style guide loaded into the system, this will actually load in your exact styles. So in this case, we have a primary style of this very specific blue color. You could go with a darker color, which whatever you do, you just have to do pretty much a very strong contrasting color for this to work. You can do it, the system will let you do anything you want, but if you want the QR code to work, you need to go with very strong contrasting colors. So in this case, I'm actually just going to go with a very basic white background. And so nothing that you have to do there at all. And then in this case, I could use the primary color, but just to be on the safe side, I'm just going to go with a slightly different blue color. And actually it's fine, because if you look at the logo, you'll see the logo itself even uses a gradient. So this is just using the top part of the gradient. So it's still perfectly within the style guide. Now we're going to make it actually look more modern. So you could do things like doing a circle. Uh, Sometimes that's fine if you're doing this for print, and yeah, it's going to have some kind of a border or something, then circle's not really ideal. Circle can be cool in a number of different scenarios. Definitely it looks unique, like if you put on a menu or something like that. But if you're doing it for like postcards or mailers, or something where you don't really get to control the surroundings of it, typically just going with a square one that has a border is usually your best bet. My favorite theme to use is the dot one. I think that just is kind of a cool, it's, even though it's dots and we have one here called classy, I didn't name these. That just actually was kind of a standardized name that came with the library. So personally, I think the dots are the classiest option, even classier than this one. But you can go with any of them that you like. I'm going to go with dots. And then here you have corner, square, shape. So in this case, you can see how you could change that to be a circle, a square. I like, in this case, extra rounded. And then the corner dot shape, where it'll change that to be a circle. And then we'll get to this QR variation type here momentarily, after we upload the icon. So when you upload an icon, you just click on the icon dropdown, and then I've pre-loaded a high-res icon. Key thing, and it says it right here in the instructions, is you want to use an image that is a perfect square. So in this case, I think I went with something that was like 700 pixels by 700 pixels. You don't need to go with something that big. That's the reason why, like, uh we don't even put a size in here, because it all depends on how big of the QR code is. So in this case, I did a pretty decent size one at 3000 pixels. So I wanted to make sure I had a big enough icon. And you may wonder why we need a big icon when it's so tiny. Well, that comes into this, the QR variation type. This I used to think was absolutely pointless and did nothing, until I started building out this QR code design tool and playing with it, and then I realized it was actually my favorite customization option. So if you look at the screen, you'll see if I start on L, you can see the way the icon there looks. If I change it to M, you'll see it gets bigger. H gets even bigger, and Q gets slightly bigger. Sometimes I've seen the Q like even take up more space. So this is just a really neat way of being able to kind of rearrange things and really make your logo, your icon really, really pop out. So you can definitely play around with those and pick out whatever one is best for your use case. In this case, I think I'm going to go with H. And that's almost it. I guess you should probably do the most important part, which is plug in the URL. So here I plugged in the nickname, which generated this short code URL. Now, one thing you won't be able to create this anymore because these URLs have to be unique. And so free week trial is now going to belong to this account. And obviously these have to be unique because this creates the short code URL. And this is really the magic uh, that makes the QR code system, especially with external URLs, but even with your own DashTrack URLs. What makes it kind of so special is with a normal system, like the majority of the QR code generators that you'll deal with. If you have a URL like this, so I'll paste it in here. If you have a URL like this, the QR code system is going to map, and it's going to be this representation of these characters. It's just going to, go down the line and generate these characters, and that's going to be what these dots represent. And I'm going to save this. So if you just hit submit and download, you'll see that automatically downloaded the QR code. And you can see it is absolutely gorgeous. Really nice high resolution one. And if I or you pop open your phone right now and scan this, then you'll see it takes you to that Google form site. Now, I'm going to keep this URL, and I'm also going to name it just so you know that I'm not lying about this. So, free week trial. And now we can just grab any URL. So I'm just going to grab the DashTrack website URL. And so, and just because I don't even trust myself, I'm just going to open this up really quick and verify that everything is working, and it's taking me to this Google form, and it is perfect. Blue chip athletic free golfers mobility. So this one is good, and I actually have because I was testing and playing around with this. This is a second one I created for it, just for you in this video. But just for the sake of argument, I'm going to plug in the DashTrack URL. And now, notice first and foremost, if you pay attention to the QR code itself, notice how I'm changing the URL, but the QR code is not changing at all. And now if I completely change the URL and hit submit, and then once you hit submit, you don't have to edit again. You could either copy the short link here, or if you just click view QR code, this will take you back here and you can download. So this one, I'm going to say this one's the DashTrack one. This is DashTrack. And now, so this is DashTrack. This is first free trial one. And they are completely identical because they're the same exact code. And the way that is possible, and I'm going to, just to prove it, I'm going to pop this open. And now it took me a DashTrack. Perfect. So the way that this is possible is all because of this little guy right here, this short code URL. So the way that it works with most sites is, or most just QR code generators, is the final URL is the one that generates the code. That's what generates the dots, just like we talked about. We knew, just because we had clients complaining about it from previous vendors and things like that, we knew that that is really not a great long-term solution because URLs change. Yeah, it'd be kind of like if you had, some kind of, some kind of mechanism for showing off your address or sharing your address with people and literally never let you actually change the address, even if you move. And so that would really be a horrible instrument. And so what we did is we generated these short code URLs, and I'm just going to hit close here. So that's what this short code link is. So in this case, you can see it is just this dtrck.co/s and then whatever the kind of custom branded link is. And so if you open this up, you'll see in this case, it goes straight to DashTrack. This other one that points to that same form we looked at, you can see this goes to the Google Doc. So the way that it all happens is the URL, technically, even when you edit the final version where it's sent to, even when you edit that, it's not actually changing the URL. That is how all of this really is possible. So now, now that you've seen kind of how it works with an external URL, let's see how you could do it for an internal one. You definitely could just say create QR code, give it a nickname, and then just pick out a page from the site right here. That is 100% doable and it works great. But it's even easier when you go to content pages and you have your whole page list and the kind of the normal way that you go through the site. You'll notice here, and on the new dashboard it'll be even more evident. um we're still getting ready to release that, which is part of the reason why I'm recording it on this one, also because almost all of our users currently use this one. And so if you notice here in your set of actions, one of them is actually a QR code. So this skips the step of you even having to like pick out the page or anything like that. You just literally just go line item by line item, whatever one that you want to create it for. So say, say we want to do one specifically pointing to success stories. So here I can just hit QR code and we can do, in this case, let's just do the name. So I'll say success stories. You'll see that created that URL. It automatically plugged in the page that it is going to. We'll keep actually in this case, let's do kind of a fun one. We'll do let's do a highlight, which is just like super, super dark, or we could even do one. Yeah, we'll do them like this. And then dot colors here. This is one where that primary one would work and it really stick out. And then for this one, it doesn't matter on the size. If they want to use it later, then it's super easy to edit and download one fresh. I'm going to stick with square, extra rounded, and then we'll go extra rounded on all of these guys. And once again, we'll just grab that icon. And there you go. And so this is now a success story QR code on the internal side. So the internal ones are even faster to build out. So you just hit save and download. And now you have the success story one, all branded, customized, completely different colors. This one points to the success story on the current site. It'll also follow it along if you change it or anything like that. So same things with external URLs. And that is pretty much it. Some of the one other uh, kind of cool feature about this is if you also you can see it automatically adds your all of them, including your internals, to this list. One other thing that you may find helpful and kind of cool is if you go to the QR code list and you see you actually have analytics specifically on the links themselves. So as you share them, as you share the QR code, or like say that you send out campaigns and you want to track how some of them are doing or which ones are more engaging, that kind of thing, you can actually do that right here. And each time somebody scans it or they go to the short link, because that's really what's doing, is it's just capturing and pinging the server to let them, every time someone uses that URL and then before it redirects to the site, that's capturing that, and then you're able to get those analytics. So two key things that you can do with the DashTrack QR code system. One, you can generate gorgeous, fully branded QR codes that you can utilize, one on your current site for any of the pages on it, and then also with external sites, including the ability to have to be able to change the URLs in the future and not having to be locked into one or having to go and change and reprint every QR code every time that you print it out, they or use the QR code that anytime a URL changes. So those are those two key things. I hope you found that helpful, and let me know if you have any questions whatsoever.